Yo, welcome into the BeBall Jones podcast. The goal of this podcast in my business is to bridge the gap, to fuel hoop dreams into impactful realities on the court and beyond. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Scott Goldman? Everything good?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. Life has its obstacles, but you just have to keep going, keep pushing through in spite of it all. But can't complain. Glad to have you here. I appreciate it.
I'm honored to be. Sometimes you're the windshield, and sometimes you're the bug. It's always good just to know which one you are. Hopefully, it's
Yeah.
not the bug every time.
Those bug moments do hurt and they're a little frustrating, but it is what it is. You got to keep rolling with it.
Amen. Totally agree.
All right, so you're a pretty cool person. You work with some cool people. You do some cool things.
Thank you.
You're a high level psychologist for the NBA team, but not just the NBA team, a championship winning NBA team. How does that
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah. Right now, I've got 3 contracts. One is with an NBA team that has won a world championship. One is an NFL team, and one is a Major League Baseball team.
Mm. Okay, I know you were that high level. I knew you were like on the NBA side, you were good, but now you're just going over different sports, so that's different. Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Oh, thanks.
But I think we should have a good talk around overcoming obstacles and how can we actually like bounce back. I think that's a difficult thing that we all kind of deal with and challenge with. So, um, when it comes to on the court issues, a player makes a bad play, he turns the ball over at a crucial time, or she misses a shot that she just really needed to hit right there. How can we bounce back from that?
Good question. I think failure is an interesting concept because if you think about failure tied to time, it becomes a different kind of equation. So here's what I mean by that. Like, if you miss a shot and you go, well, I failed, I should never shoot again. Then I think what you've done is you've actually set the time limit. You go, okay, I'm just going to have a 30-second window to evaluate success and failure. But if you extend that length of time and that concept of time, then really every shot that you've missed is just helping you set up, and you keep giving yourself more time until you get to a place where you start to have your hits. So I have found that a lot of really successful people are the ones that just didn't stop. So if you miss a shot, the best thing you can do is keep shooting. If you lose a game, the best thing you can do is keep playing games. If you get cut from a team, the best thing you can do is keep trying out for teams. Now, I think they say the best definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you miss a shot, it doesn't mean just keep shooting and leave it at that. It's figure out what was wrong about your shot. Your elbows tucked in, and are you snapping your wrist? Like, what kinds of things can you do to improve so that when you fail, you're just not failing the same way. And I think the more times you fail in different ways, you'll start to figure out the ways that you also can make things work.
I try to tell players when they get down on themselves about missing a shot or whatever, and just to change their perspective on it, it's like, okay, you missed a shot. Okay, fine. But how many shots did you miss when you were in practice and you were in training? You don't know. So let's say you shot 50 shots. You're trained to shoot 50 shots, and this is just the 51st shot, or this is the 52nd shot. So instead of putting the emotional connection into it, just zoom out a little bit and look at it as another rep, as another shot that you missed or made. So whether it's the game winner, whether it's a training session shot, or it was the first shot of the game, just kind of zoom out a little bit, take the emotion away from it to where you just missed a shot. Because you got another game to play tomorrow, right? Okay, so let's not get as emotional about it. Be frustrated, be mad or whatever, because that's the human experience. But sometimes we have to zoom out of it, to make it more objective to where we can move on from it. So that's kind of a tool I use when I'm dealing with players. So
That's a good one. Yeah. It's funny, right? Because I think you can have a healthy debate about, do you treat things as the same, like, hey, this is just another game? Or do you treat things as different? Like, hey, no, yes, we can say like the Super Bowl is just another game, right? Like the field size is the same and the number of players on it are the same. And yet at the same time, the Super Bowl is pretty different. Like millions of people are watching all over the world, and the halftime's longer than normal because you've got the, you know, halftime show and stuff like that. So to your
mm,
point, I think that there's a really effective strategy in sort of being like, you know what? There are certain things that are the same. I would pull on that thread a little bit and also say, now let's try to identify what things are different. So if we're
mm,
talking to, say, like a youth athlete, it's like, look, the shot clock's the same, the basketball court's the same, the net's the same. But if this is the state championship, it might feel a little bit different. Let's see what we can accept and not necessarily react to those differences.
mm. I like that because I think sometimes we get too black and white and too binary in things, and we don't ever have that gray area, nuanced conversation of, or just another game. But it's really not just another game, you know. So how can we find that balance of same thing, different day versus the moment that we're in?
Yeah, I find one of the paradoxes when I talk to other psychologists, sports psychologists, I find one of the paradoxes that we can fall into is people want simple answers. I just came across a study that said that the attention span of people 15 to 25 has dropped with this current generation to 7 seconds, which the
Mm,
average length of a TikTok video, I think, is 8 seconds. So it becomes almost, I mean, you can debate chicken and the egg there. Like, is the success of Instagram and TikTok because they're shortening their clips, or is it this is something we're all viewing and therefore it's cutting down our attention span? Either direction that goes, I think the point I'm trying to make is I think human beings are unbelievably complicated. I think human interactions is a multiplier of complication. And trying to come up with words that you can put on a wall or a simple, you know, kind of quote, fake it till you make it, or, hard work beats talent, talent doesn't work hard, or whatever other kind of buzzwordy kind of thing. I know that's what we're all looking for. I just don't know how much it suffices or satisfies.
yeah, because the more I think about stuff, like I think might have been in middle school when the Kevin Durant quote came out about hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, and that was cool. You know, that was in the moment of what it is. But now that I'm very far removed from that, and I know a little bit more, just a little bit more, it's not always true. You know, because sometimes you can have the more talented team, and that talent just shines no matter what you do. You can be a hardworking team, but if you're not working on the right things, it doesn't matter how hardworking you are. Or we've all seen the guy who works 10 times harder than the best guy on the court, but they can't make a shot to save their life. And the guy who comes in once a week, it's effortless for him. So I think stuff like that, now that I'm older, it's more nuanced and it's more case by case. So that quote can apply very specific to this demographic of people or this time frame of my life. This thing works. But once you work hard, you have to, okay, now we have to work smart. Let's get more efficient and fine tune this tool. So you found the right tool without the hard work. Now you got this axe or this sword and you have it now. You know how to work it. But now to sharpen it to where you don't have to swing 10 times to cut this tree down. You swing twice and now it's cut. So I think that's where, like you said, it's hard to have a overarching thing because it's so nuanced, the details within it. So yeah, it is kind of weird space, especially with the social media life that we're living in now.
Yeah. So I just think one of the reasons why people can get away with selling magic beans, for example, is if we're looking for quick answers, be careful what answers are given to you. Because to your point, it's sort of like hard work beats talent and talent doesn't work hard, or work smarter, not harder. Like if you're scrolling on X or Twitter or whatever it's called, like you can see some of these gurus and stuff where they'll put one thing out and then the very next one that follows is something that completely contradicts it from somebody else. It's like, okay, well, which one's right? And I think they probably both have some element of rightness to it. I just find like when I'm working with coaches and players, I'm trying to sit and generate a space where they can kind of explore and process what's going on in their life and what's going on with their relationship to sport so that they have a meaningful direction. So if it's a person that goes, this sport has really come easy to me and I haven't had to work too hard at it. So I'm going to adopt the, work smarter, not harder mindset. And you go, okay, interesting. But I think the fact of the matter is, as you move up the ranks and you get to more and more elite space, where everybody's going to have just as much talent as you, but they've put in the work, that could be a challenge. So you might want to transition from the, hey, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard mindset. And so it's really just about kind of knowing, working with a person, not working to a person, but working with a person or working for a person and helping them come to their aha moment of like, yes, this is what I need to do to make myself better.
Yeah, I think about it like that when it comes to work hard versus working smart. I think if I had to give a more generic answer, I always say you have to earn the right to work smart. Like you don't just off the rip think I'm going to work smart. So you work hard, bust your butt, and you get the feel for what it is. It doesn't matter what area we're talking about. You just work hard because you don't know if you're good at it or not. You don't understand what goes on in this arena. So you just work hard at first.
So let's just have fun with this for a sec.
Okay.
What was the last phone number you memorized? You don't have to say this number out loud because you don't want your audience just pinging this person, but what was the last phone number you memorized?
Oof. A very long time ago. I only know like my family phone number, so that was years ago.
Okay. But that's not the last phone number you were given.
hmm
What did you do with the last phone number you were given?
I just placed it in my phone and saved it there.
Is that working smarter or working harder?
Okay. Interesting.
Right? Because I think having the cell phone and putting the number in the cell phone, that's working smarter. You can free up your brain to focus on other things. But if your cell phone breaks, working harder and having it memorized means that you don't have to be dependent on the cell phone. So both work. So I tend to think of it like this, especially at the pro space. Doing things that can help eliminate the noise and amplify the signal. Doing the things that eliminate the noise can be really powerful. Like plugging a phone number into your cell phone. That's eliminating the noise. Like, all right, I can focus on other things.
hmm
It's really interesting. Like as you go through like preparation week, like as you're heading into the playoffs or a championship game, like I talk a lot about this with players and coaches. Like it's amazing all the people that come out of the woodwork and start asking for phone number, for tickets and stuff. Like, hey, I'm your cousin Ray Ray from. You're like, dude, we never met. I don't remember ever having a cousin Ray. Then you got to call your mom. Hey, mom, do I got a cousin Ray Ray? I'm like, well, your uncle kind of has, and it's like that's a 20-minute conversation just trying to figure out who Ray Ray is, and you can have 300 of those during that week. So it becomes an interesting mechanism of like, how do you eliminate the noise and stay focused? And some of that might be working smarter. And yet at the same time, like you were saying earlier, you still got to put up the shots,
hmm
You're not going to be a better shooter just thinking you're a better shooter. You got to be a better shooter by at least putting 100 a day. The best athletes I've been around, they have intelligence and an unsatiable work ethic. Like they're the first ones in the building and the last ones to leave. The very best, the truly elite of the elite are unbelievably talented with a drive that is unparalleled. And I'll tell you, my experience is when your best player is your hardest worker, it makes everything easier for the coaches and the teammates.
Hey, hold on. Time out real quick. We're going to get back to the episode. I know you're enjoying it. I know you're enjoying the show. But I need you to help me real quick and to make sure this episode can grow, make sure this podcast and show can grow overall, and you can keep getting great guests like this. Make sure that you subscribe and follow along. So if you watch right now on YouTube, help me out by hitting the subscribe button. Go ahead and do it real quick. If you're listening in your car, chill out for a second. If you're on Apple or on Spotify, just like when you get a moment, hit the follow button, but not right now while you're driving. If you're working out or something, or you're chilling in your room, then go ahead and subscribe with me. Like, help me help you, okay? But thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. I'm gonna stop interrupting so you get back to the episode. Thank you. Okay, I want to ask you this. This wasn't planned, but in your situation, you have a unique dynamic, and for some reason, we came to this consensus that the best player has to be the leader. And I think it came from Jordan. I think most stuff from basketball talk now stems from Michael Jordan. But you're in a situation where the best player is a leader, but he's not the Michael Jordan type of leader.
So let's talk about that. Two things. I think one, your best player is a leader, whether he wants to be or not, or she wants to be or not. When you are your best player, everybody's looking to you. When things are hitting the fan, as they say, or bumps on the road, or whatever expression we want to use, everybody's looking to you to be like, dude, you got to help us out, kind of thing. So I would say whether you want to be or not, if you're the best player on the team, you are a leader because you can do things that other people can't. The second thing I would say is what kind of leader you are speaks volumes. Like I think there's a reason why some players who are supremely talented have not been on winning teams, because how they choose to conduct their lives and their business really sets a tone for that locker room. The second thing I would mention is I don't believe that any organization has just one leader. In fact, there's an exercise that I do with teams where I try to identify different types of leaders by asking a series of questions. So like I'll share you some of the questions that I ask. Imagine, so here are two questions that give you very different results just to kind of highlight my thought process. Who on the team, so here's how I ask the question. Imagine the team's on a bus. It's a road trip. The bus crashes. Everybody survives, but it crashes in the middle of nowhere. It's like the middle of a jungle. I don't know what game you're playing or where, but you just got to roll with me on this. So the bus crashes in the jungle, and you can only send one person to go get help. Who's that one person? And you let the team kind of select. And 9 times out of 10, that's the person who's really the heart of your team. That's the warrior of your team. That's the person who will will themselves and everybody else around them to victory. Like that's your grit guy or gal. By contrast, another question I'll ask is, okay, same scenario where, now we're going to a game via helicopter. The helicopter lands in a deserted island and we're all stranded. It's out of gas. A boat comes by and rescues everybody but 2 people. You volunteer to stay, and because you volunteered to stay, everybody agrees that you can pick the other person who stays with you. And you don't know when the rescue boat is coming back. So I'll open this one up to you. What do you think we're trying to figure out there?
I guess it would be the person or player that is on a mental side able to have the right mindset to
to
kind
get,
of have the long-term vision and view of things. And they're
yeah,
also bearable.
yeah. It's the person that can get along with everybody. It's the least annoying person. Like if you're going to be stuck on a deserted island, you just don't want to be with somebody who's going to drive you crazy, right?
Mhm.
So where the first person's that warrior spirit, the second person is potentially that social connector. So one thing that can happen is some highly talented players can really struggle to connect with their teammates because they're like, why can't you do what I do? So on road trips, you put that deserted island person, the one that everybody votes, you put that with the high performance player, and it'll increase their likability because that's a social connector. And so when you start to look at, again, human behavior is unbelievably complicated. Human interaction is a multiplier of that complication. When we're trying to put together a team, it's about having multiple leaders. So with an organization that I've worked really closely with for the last couple of years, you've got one leader who is supremely talented. You've got another leader who really is the accountability coach and ensures that everybody is doing their job. And then you've got another one that's kind of like a pressure release valve, a guy who can kind of keep the locker room light and engaged. So this one has an expectation of excellence, the best talented player, and a hard worker, but might not call people out. And everybody wants to follow him because he's so great. This one calls people out, so he holds a lot of weight in the room. And then this one knows when to kind of lighten the room a little bit with a joke or a smile. All
Mhm.
three are very important to the process of success.
Yeah, I think that that's more of the conversation we should have because I think we get too pigeonholed in leadership as in one person. Leadership is the focal point of this one direction of like it's always the Jordan, it's always Kobe, it's always LeBron. But you didn't see how Pippen was more of the mom of the team, where Jordan was laying down the law and Pippen come right behind him was like, okay, this is what he said, but this
Actually,
is what he meant.
let
He
me.
had Kobe and Shaq.
Mhm.
Yeah. He had Kobe and Shaq where Kobe was the driving force and we're this is laying down the law. And Shaq was like, man, forget all that, man. We gonna ball out here and have fun. And then he had Powell, and I think Derek Fisher was the ultimate connector, like you were saying, for Kobe. Because he was ruthless and he was like, how are you so dumb in basketball? And you get paid to do this. But Fish was come behind him and like, that wasn't the smartest play, man. Like, come on. Like he would soften the blow of what Kobe was saying. And so I think that sometimes we lose sight that, like you said, it's more than just one person leadership. It's more of a group, or more of a tier of leadership. And I think that's the better conversation we should start having. So you pressure young guys into or young girls to being the Jordan or Kobe type of leadership where you have to speak up and be vocal. But I think we have to have the more nuanced conversation of actions lead to. We need to follow that because, like you said, you have a player who might not say a whole lot, but everybody's going to follow them in what they do because they're the ones that's working the hardest in the organization or the team. So,
Well, and I think it's also very situational, right? Like there are times where an accountability coach or player, the one that holds everybody to a standard, can be really important. Like, look, if we're going to run up that hill, we got to run up as hard as we can, as fast as we can. That's the only way to win. And then there's other times where it's the relational coach or that relational player, to your point, the one that puts his arm around and says, hey, man, everything's going to be okay. If everybody's too relational and we're all just good vibes and chill, I don't think anything gets done. And if everything's too aggressive and too dominating, I also think nothing gets done.
mhm.
So there is, and it's replicated across a wide variety of literature and context. But in Eastern philosophy, we talk about yin and yang, right? Like there's a lightness and a darkness, and it's never 100% dark. It's never 100% light. Like there's always that little dot, and it's also circular because it's meant to ebb and flow. And so I have found some of the best teams I've been around. They have multiple leaders, and then the group tends to track or follow the different leader needed for the task. oh, the bus broke down and we got to fix a tire. We got to work together as a team to do that. Then this leader kind of kicks in. Oh, we all have to show up on time. Then this type of leader kicks in. Oh, we have to pursue excellence and work out at 4:00 in the morning. Like, then this leader kicks in. So it becomes one of those things where when you're doing it right or when you're seeing it done right, it's a rich tapestry. It's almost like an orchestra where you're going like, oh, it's time for the horn section. Let's get that going. Oh, wait, now it's time to kind of let the wind section kick in. It's fun. It's fun to watch. Like when I reflect on my career and stuff, it's just fun to watch people who are masters of their craft doing amazing things with their mind, body, and spirit. So cool.
As a coach or as somebody who's in management or whatever, how do you see that they kind of play around with that? So how much do they step in and enforce certain things, and how much do they take a hands-off approach and let the players kind of decide and dictate the flow of things?
Well, I think when you have one of the best players who's a really good person and a great leader and all that, I think it's a lot easier on the coach. But it's also incredibly rare. Not really understanding who might be listening to this. I'll try to look at the youth, amateur, collegiate, and pro space, like watch that spectrum. I think most children have a really interesting relationship to their sport. Sometimes it's forged like through a relationship with a parent, a father or a mother or a guardian, uncle, or grandparent, where they love the game because somebody else loved the game. So there's kind of like adoption phase. Oh, you like that? I like it too. But then there's this internal kind of fire, like, I really like it. Like, I just want to see how good I can be. Like, I want to know, how many shots can I make in a row? And those are the kids that you see kind of like in the park or the playground or even in like some driveway somewhere, just putting up shots, right? Until mom says it's time to come home for dinner kind of thing, or someone says it's time to come home for dinner. And then they start to get good because they have such a passion for trying to solve the puzzle. They get really good. And then the world around them changes. So like when I do psychological profiles for draft players, one question I like to ask the players is, at what age did people start to treat you differently because of what you can do on the field or the court? And it's amazing because I'm watching and listening, and these kids are telling me that change where people start to treat them different is happening at younger and younger stages of development. So why is that important? And thanks for letting me be long-winded. I know I can kind of go on a podium for a bit. It's important two ways. One is most children develop when there is an out of balance moment in their lives, and then they have to kind of figure it out and connect. So rules and structure and things like that can be really helpful because it's like, like developing a good bedtime routine where you brush your teeth and you take a shower and then you read a book and then you go to bed. Like getting into those kinds of routines helps provide ways of working through life. So, babies that learn to crawl, walk, and climb, like there's a lot of stumbling and falling, and then it clicks, and then it's the next level, and then it clicks, and then the next level clicks. When people start to get treated differently, they're given life hacks or cheat codes. Hey, I know how hard it is playing basketball. Don't worry about turning in your paperwork. Hey, I know how hard school might be for you while trying to master your craft of basketball. You know what? Let's just enroll you in easier classes that make your life more manageable. So I think one element that can happen is as really extremely talented players start to have the rules sort of bend and break for them, it can cause a maturational issue where they don't grow. They don't understand the natural laws of consequences that apply to just average Joes and Janes like myself. Like, I can't just get out of a speeding ticket by writing an autograph. So that's on one element of it. The other element of it is at some point this internal fire. So going back to it, right, there's an adoption phase. Hey, someone who's my hero or idol likes this sport. I like it now too. My dad likes it. I like it. Then it becomes, now I really love it. I'm really kind of curious how great I can be. And then all of a sudden people go, hey, I'll pay you $5, or I'll pay you $50, or I'll pay, or I'll get your family a dishwasher, or something else that now all of a sudden kicks into, I'm not really doing this for me anymore. Now I'm doing it for some kind of external reward. Like my popularity goes up when I make baskets, or the most attractive person in our school is into me because I'm all district. And now all of a sudden this internal love of the game becomes more about the external rewards. And that becomes a real twist for performance as well.
So when you see players at that level,
Which level?
a lot of different things.
Sorry, which level?
At the
youth or pro
level.
Got it.
Pro level. And you're ciphering through the draft and free agents and everything. How much do you guys weigh in their motivation factors? Like, how much do you look at what drives them and what motivates them when you're looking at recruiting them, acquiring them for your team?
So different teams have different formulas, right? But the motivation element is key, because if their below the neck is like a Ferrari, but the above the neck is like somebody who's never been in a car before, I don't care how primo the Ferrari is, it's not going to drive right. So if you think about between the ears being the driver, then motivation's everything. There's a famous study in psychology that I'm sure you're familiar with that involves how you can train a mouse to press a lever to get a piece of cheese. And it's funny because you'll see this in pro sports of recent, where they would have things like turnover chains and stuff like that, things to motivate the players to go for some kind of reward. And it was funny because you were watching as this was happening, that the rewards were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is a lot like, hey, let's just make better and better cheese so that they'll press the lever more. What people seem to forget to read about the literature about the mouse pressing the lever to the cheese is, it didn't matter how good the cheese was. The mouse would never press it till the mouse got hungry. So I always like to bring this up to coaches, because a lot of times they go, oh, let's create like a turnover chain or a championship belt or a touchdown hat, or excuse me. And I'm going like, hey, that's really cool. And I think, the kids will have fun with it. But the reality is you got to figure out what they're really hungry for.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bigger the cheese doesn't really get the lever press. It's the hunger that gets the lever press. So when we talk about motivation, I like to kind of talk about two elements of motivation. There's passion, which is a lot more selfish. What I'm passionate about, what gets me out of bed. Like, man, I just love being a sports psychologist. I love talking to people. I love talking about this stuff. Like, I could do it every day for the rest of my life, and you'd never have to pay me a dime for it, kind of thing. That's what I'm passionate about, selfish. And then there's purpose. And purpose is more about something greater than yourself. It's about the community or the people that you can serve, right? So one of the questions that I'll ask in a draft interview, for example, is, would you rather win a championship but have the league minimum pay, or would you rather get a max contract on a losing team? And there was a player who said, I know that you all are probably going to value championships more. So you want the dude who will win a championship with league minimum pay. That makes a lot of sense to me why a team would want a guy like that. But you also asked me to be honest in my answers, and my answers, I would take the max contract. So one, you got to love a guy's honesty like that. Like he put that on the table. I'm telling you that my answer is what I think is the opposite of what you all are looking for. And what's nice about the team that I was working for at the time was we asked that question with no right or wrong answer. We just wanted his truth. So we followed up. We said, okay, well, why do you want the max contract? And he said, I'm the first person in my family to go to college because of my sport. I am 2 generations removed from family members, my grandparents specifically, who were brought to this country as slaves. He said, if I got a max contract, my children could go to college and pursue whatever degree they want or follow any passion that they have. They would not even have to play sports to be there. If they want to play sports, they can, but they do not have to in order to have a seat at the table. And their children's children and their children's children will never be in a situation where they would have to worry about something like slavery or anything awful of hustling to make a dollar. That generational wealth doesn't just change my immediate family. It puts everything about my name, my family's name, on a different trajectory and path.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go, hey, how motivated is this guy going to be excellent for a team when he thinks about his children and his children's children and his children's children's children? That's a pretty special guy. So we took him. We drafted him, and he's been great.
Man, that's a great story. I like that one.
Best part about telling the truth, it's easy to say over and over again.
Yeah. I like the motivation. When I speak about motivation, I think about it as fuel. So I give this analogy that when you go to the gas station, you have 3 pumps. So I use 3 as 3 pumps that I have. So you spoke about passion, you spoke about purpose. I think the third one you can use is pain. And to go back to the story you're giving about the mouse and the cheese, there's another one I heard that is about the cat. So like you said, there's 2 things that's going to fuel that mouse moving. It's either running towards the cheese or running away from the cat.
That's right.
And a lot of times we try to overemphasize the cheese and pursuing the cheese of the good outcome or the luxurious life that we want to have. But sometimes using that cat is just as much fuel, and probably even better fuel sometimes. Like you said, you only move when you're hungry versus whether you're hungry, sleepy, thirsty, tired, it doesn't matter. That cat's coming. So you have to get up and move anyway. And sometimes we can use that pain, that frustration that we're running away from just as much. It's sometimes better fuel to get us going too. But I also caution against that sometimes because that can be the cheapest source of fuel sometimes. Because you can burn out on that one with the anger and frustration that comes with it.
Yeah. So first of all, what a brilliant capture. Like, honestly, dude, that is straight up brilliant. Love it. All organisms on this planet really follow 3 primary drivers. From the tiniest single-celled amoeba to the largest whale in the ocean. Like, we follow 3 drivers. We pursue pleasure, we avoid pain, and we want to replicate our cells. So take the replication of cells out of it. Though you could make the argument that being a highly successful professional athlete might give you the opportunity to replicate and have more offspring kind of thing, because you're just deemed as a more attractive person, right? And by attraction, I mean not just physically looking, but like, oh, this person's got juice, so to speak. But going back to the pursue pleasure and avoid pain, right? So it's interesting because you can have the activity satisfy both. Like the cheese could taste good, that's the pleasure, and it turns off the pain of the hunger. Like you could even eliminate the cat out of your metaphor and just talk about it doesn't press it till it's hungry, and that hunger is a sense of discomfort. So I think going back to it from like a coaching mechanism is, when do you use pain avoidance as a strategy? So for example, there are some coaches that really will mother F a player. And then it becomes, I'd rather go through the discomfort of running a few more laps than the discomfort of getting yelled at by my coach.
Mm.
And then there are others that use more of a reward mechanism, like, hey, if you run some laps, we'll all have cupcakes at the end of practice or whatever the case may be. What I have found is when you over reward a team and you give nothing but pleasurable experiences, you have to continue to keep raising the bar on those. So it's what happens is human beings have a tendency to satiate. Kind of like when you jump into a pool, the pool temperature doesn't change, the water temperature doesn't change. We just get used to it. So same thing is like if you start giving cupcakes at the end of practice, now you have to make that a standard, because the one day that you don't bring cupcakes, they're going to go, hey, where's our cupcakes? Like that no longer was a reward. That's now just the norm. So I think when you use the reward mechanism too much, you don't get the same kind of output because they've acclimated or they've just become used to, this is the reward I get. I deserve it. It's just for showing up. Similarly, if you do the pain stuff too much, you can install fear and hopelessness. People will give up and quit. Like, hey, this is just too painful and there's no pleasing this guy. I'm out. So I think a real balance is when you know when and how to implement rewarding moments and enriching moments, as well as how to implement accountability moments or harsh moments. The literature talks about if you're going to install some form of punishment or pain, it should be high in intensity and short in duration. So I tell coaches, if you're going to mother F a player, it should be high in intensity, short in duration, and you should be mindful of the side effects, which is fear and hopelessness. So if you do it wrong, know this. They're going to start looking over their shoulder every time they miss a shot. They're going to look to see, are you about to mother F them again or not? And same thing, like if you over reward them, they're not going to pursue greatness either.
I was reading in this book saying something similar to that, where you can't always just give the reward, because like you said, you have to go bigger and better, because like you said, we become accustomed and used to it. So it's more of an expectation than like a driving source of what I want to get to at the end of the road. So if every day you got home, there's a big party for you, there's been more expectations. Like, that sounds amazing. Like, oh, I'm throwing a party just for me. Oh man, this is special. And for the first week, it'll be cool. But then after a while, it's like, man, I wonder what it's gonna throw this time. It's gonna be like a Mexican party. Is it gonna be a fiesta? How is it gonna be this time? It's gonna be cake or cupcakes or ice cream. And so your mind changes from, man, that was special, to now you're maneuvering through the level of expectation that you have around it, to where it's like, oh, now you're disappointed where they didn't have this type of thing, they had that thing, and that was wrong.
So we do produce a neurochemical called dopamine. And some people will talk about how dopamine is part of the kind of like happiness. There's a few neurochemicals that people associate with happiness: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. I always remember it as dose. Get your daily dose, right? DOSE. But let's talk about dopamine for a second. Dopamine is kind of like the happiness we get from the thrill of the hunt. Dopamine has a lot to do with addiction and chasing. So you can even sometimes hear people go, oh, you got to get your dopamine fix, kind of thing. So why do I bring that up? Because if the reward is too easy, I don't think dopamine gets released. And dopamine can be really powerful, one, in giving us a sense of happiness, but it can also be really powerful in that kind of addiction/compulsion level of like, I'm putting up my 100 shots today so I can get the dopamine of feeling what it feels like to get 25 points in a game. If getting 25 points in games too easy, the dopamine doesn't trigger. And that's why it's like, it's interesting. And this is going to be a global statement, so it's not fair. But I have always been fascinated by bigs, because at the earlier stages, when there's really no other 7-footer or 6'11" guy in the gym or anywhere near their county. So everybody just keeps lobbing them, and they just kind of are running. They're just rim protectors and stuff like that. Like the game is so easy to them because of their height, and then they work their way up to more advanced levels. And all of a sudden, they're going up against other tall guys, and it's just like it's a real calibration. Like, holy crap, what am I doing? What's going on here? And so I think it's interesting because people who are physically gifted at earlier stages of their career, at the youth stage, it becomes an interesting dynamic of, yeah, it's good enough. I can do just enough to win. Versus those that really pursue excellence are like, I can win by 2 points, or I can win by 20 points. Like, I think another question to explore with certain athletes is, would you be satisfied with losing knowing you played your best? Or would you rather win knowing you didn't have to give full effort?
That's a tough one.
Well, right? Because sometimes we talk about how winning is the only thing. But the reality is like Tiger Woods had this great quote about not sinking the putt, but just taking a shot he knew he could live with. If I can just take a shot, no matter what the results are, but I'm proud of what I did. I think there's something said for that.
I think that that's a tough one so much because, like you said, we're driven to think about winning is the only thing. Like that's the most important thing that matters. But I think is the right conversation is like when you say, as a coach, when you have a developmental team, you're not winning championships, you're on the back end lottery pick team. You can have a win and everything goes wrong. But at that stage, I feel like you're more developing the habits and the mindset that goes into it versus the championship side of things. We'll take either one, preferably the win with the ugly way because the ranking matters. And then when you get in the playoff mode, I don't care how we win. We need to get 4 wins this round. It doesn't matter. So I think that's a really tough one because it depends on the stage that you're at and the conversation we're having. But overall, I think that's a good one.
Well, it kind of goes back to a coach. There are a lot of coaches at varying degrees of development where they can win, but really at the sacrifice of more longevity or career benefit. So again, you got a tall guy on your team and he's a foot above everybody else. It's like, hey, just keep feeding Jones, keep feeding Jones, keep feeding Jones. But now none of the kids are developing the fundamentals of passing or dribbling or even the tactics of the sport, dribble handoffs and ISOs and all the other kinds of things. And then, yeah, they're winning, but they're winning kind of like through a way that's not really making them better. So I don't know if this is true or not, but I am a big believer that good prevails, and doing things the right way generally leads to good results, if not immediate, in the long term. So I always encourage people to kind of focus on the pursuit of excellence. And I think Bill Walsh had this quote like, you pursue excellence and you focus on the details and the process, and the results will take care of themselves, or something like that.
All right. Okay. Another timeout. Okay. Look, if you got to this point, you have to be enjoying the episode. Like you have to. At this point in the episode, you're enjoying it. So help me help you. Just if you're on Apple right now and you're on your phone, okay, just take your phone, press the subscribe button. It's right there. Just do that with me. Even if on your laptop, take your mouse, boom, click over, boom, do your thing. Now you subscribe. Now you linked in because you don't want to miss the next great episode that I have. But doing stuff like this helps the episode grow, makes the show grow, and the podcast grow so I can keep getting great guests and keep doing great interviews. So if you listen on Apple or Spotify, take a second, look at your phone, press the follow button, okay? And share with a friend or two because you'll find the value in this. You want to have this conversation with your friends so they can have the same value. Now the whole basketball community can grow. All right. Thanks for listening so far. I'm gonna get out your way. Let's get back to the episode. Appreciate you. As you can see, I'm a little bit of a Kobe fan. So I'm big on the process. And to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, the dopamine fix, and to go back early with that of the attention span. I think that when you talk about really enjoying the process and figuring out that balance of the short-term dopamine fix to stay focused on a bigger picture and delay gratification. How can we have that balance to where it's 82 games in a season, or it's going to take you 4 years to get to this point? How do you get to where we're staying focused and delaying long-term gratification to where we can actually get to the point where we can enjoy that end goal that we're looking for?
I think that's one of the great mysteries of sport and in life, right? Like, it's funny if, let's say, you wanted to lose 20 pounds. There's no real way to do that overnight. I mean, yeah, you could do surgery and stuff like, but I'm just saying realistically, you can't lose 20 pounds overnight. And what's really interesting is because it's such a gradual process, you don't really realize it. Like, you don't really calibrate until you have kind of benchmark moments. Like all of a sudden you have to switch a notch on your belt, or a friend you haven't seen in a while goes, "Wow, Jones, you look great." You know, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just a grind, and you're just kind of processing and working on it. And so it is. It's an interesting thing of like, how do you keep people to engage in something that is not an overnight success? And I feel like, and this might be like the old fart in me, like sitting on my porch, whittling, saying like, "Kids, get off my lawn." But like, I feel like now more than ever, we're demanding a sense of immediacy.
Mhm.
Immediacy regarding our rewards, our enlightenment, our results. Like, why shouldn't we think otherwise? Like, it used to take us months to communicate to people from other parts of the world. Now we can do it instantly. Writing a letter and handing it to somebody who rode a horse, to just get across the country. Like, now it's like we can just shoot a text. So we've evolved as a species, I think, to move very fast. And yet there are still certain elements like mastery of craft that takes thousands and thousands and thousands of hours.
But I think that's the tough part for this generation. I think me included, because we do see the instant overnight success, and we're told that we should be doing things at this point in time in life, and we see the success that other people are doing. And sometimes we see the shortcut where we're a 13-year-old watching what this pro guy is doing and thinking, oh, I should be doing what LeBron is doing. I should be doing what this player is doing at this level. But you didn't see the build up to get to that point. And I think sometimes we have to zoom back out and say, follow steps 1 through 13 on the ladder because they're on level 15. So go back to step 2 that they had.
Yeah, I think I came across this. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't even know how you go about recording this, but I came across a quote from a person who identified guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James and Michael Jordan and Kobe, where they said something like less than 20% of their total shots came during a game. So, I mean, you got to think about that for a sec, right? Like, less than 20% of Kobe Bryant or Steph Curry's shots are on the court for a game. So 80% of their shots that they put up are in practice or just shoot arounds or just even them getting their 100 every day. The other one that I'll pull out outside basketball is like swimming. Like swimmers, they go back and forth. I think it's almost like a form of torture in a way. Like, they're in sensory deprivation environments. They're underwater. They're just staring at a black line going back and forth, and their lungs are burning, and they're just pushing their legs and arms to, just to the max degree. And their practices are 4, 5, 6 hours long, just going back and forth, back and forth. Back. And you'll ask, like, how long's an average race? Oh, 4 minutes. So you're putting in like 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, just long, miserable hours for a 4-minute race. Like, what's the return of investment on that?
Mhm.
So that's why it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with passion and purpose and motivation. It's like the best athletes I've been around are the ones that go, What do you mean 4 hours of misery? There's nowhere else I'd rather be. And you hear that about guys like Kobe and Michael and Steph and all these others, like these legendary stories about like, how the high school gym coach would give them keys to the gym so they can go in on a Friday night and shoot. Like when everybody else is out, like going to the mall or seeing movies with their friends or just doing the kind of stuff that, you know, doofuses like me enjoy doing. They're over there just in an empty, it's just them and the ball and the hoop. And they're just doing it because that's where else would they rather be? Sometimes when yeah.
Gilbert Arenas had this story he shared where this was after the playoff fight he had with LeBron. He got put out for missing a free throw. So he called up Kobe and he was like, hey, what do you do for your training, like mentally? How do you get ready for that? So he's like, I got this Black Ops Navy SEAL guy. He gets me right. Called the guy. He's like, all right, meet me on this beach and we're going to start training. Gilbert went to the beach, went with him. He's like, all right, we're going to run until we see this yellow house, blue house, one of the two. It's a color house. And Gilbert was like, all right, cool. So they're just running. And they're going for a while. And Gilbert was like, he's kind of looking around, just trying to survey, like, I don't see the house anywhere soon. Still going, still going. And then the Navy SEAL instructor is looking at him like, hey, the more you keep looking for this house, the worse it's going to be for you. So it's better for you to just keep going. Just when it get there, we'll get there. And he said 6 hours later, they finally found the house. And then later on, he said, oh, I appreciate that. It's cool, but a basketball player, I need to get my skills and get some reps in. And he said, okay. When you shoot around, what do you usually do? So I usually go around 3-point line, get 100 shots each. He's like, okay, we're going to go 1,000. It was like 1,000? Okay, cool. So he started going through and mentally started to wear him down because he's thinking 100 shots is just, okay, cool. It's kind of like the cheese and his lever of making shots increased. But 1,000's like, that's 10x of that. So he started going through and it's missing 10 and he's making a few. And he said, hey, you have to figure out to block out all that extra noise around it and just lock into each rep because 1,000, we're not stopping until we hit 1,000. So whether you take 5 hours or 5 minutes, we get into this 1,000 reps. And so Gilbert said he had to trick his brain to like, okay, can I get 10 in a row? Okay, my last hour was 10, can I make it 30? And at some point he looked up and was like, oh, I hit 1,000 now. And so I think that we have to fine tune and internally figure out what is our benchmark or what is this measurement of success we're going to find to get to the end goal. So if the goal was 1,000 shots, first just get off the first 100 and then kind of marking off that, okay, well, I made it to 100. Now you have to internally rewire yourself to where you're saying, okay, this is my next benchmark, whether it's going to the weight room and trying to lose weight or gain weight. Can I just show up consistently? Can I have objective measures of success or failure to where the 20 pounds doesn't matter as much because I'm not even putting in A, B, and C right? So I think we can zoom out and be more objective in black and white of the journey and process to get there. And then at some point, we can look at the bigger picture of, did I lose or gain 20 pounds? Did I get the championship or did I not get it? Because then it becomes a different game that we're playing versus championship or not, 20 pounds or not. So that's kind of how I've somewhat got better with it. I'm not there yet at where I want to be, but that's a philosophy I'm adapting more of like enjoying the milestones that lead up to the end goal of the quote unquote championship.
There was a coach that I worked with where he really kind of created a metaphor about kind of like chipping in. So what happened was there was kind of like a jar and it was all about like, we're just going to keep making deposits. And then when the time's right, we're going to start to make withdrawals. We're going to start taking it out. And I always like that because it is kind of interesting. Like I think we can earn like a really good workout is when we go, all right, man, like, we chipped in today. And then it's, all right, you know what? We've had 3 games in the last 5 days. My legs are starting to wobble a little bit. Well, let's go back to all that time we spent running those 6 hours and everything. All those chip in days. Now's a day where we can kind of take a deposit or take a withdrawal out,
Mm. There was the story I heard of a guy who, I forgot the exact job that he had. I think he worked at a bank. And so He'd go to his desk every day, and he would make 120 phone calls every day. He had the best success rate of everybody. He's like a new hire. And after a while, they're like, "Man, what's going on with you? Why are you so successful in such a short time frame?" He simply said that he would have 2 cups in front of him, and it's 120 paper clips. So he would just every phone call he made, he would move one paper clip over to the next one, and then every single day he had to empty that 1 cup and fill the paper clips to another one. So for him, it was more of the driven input of I have to make these phone calls rather than reaching the quota, because if I can reach these phone calls, or if I can get the attempts up in the gym, I can get this benchmark of getting the reps in. And I think that was a unique perspective of a different way to objectify the work that we put in. So when you have a Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or whoever, they're not in the gym just getting up shots for the heck of it. It's more of a, let me get this correct input. So when the out, like you said, the deposit comes when the output is required, I can pull back and say, okay, I know I've put in this amount of reps. I know I've put in this amount of work to where the outcome is going to be there one way or another.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. 100%. Count me in on that.
Mm. Man, I think that we are so far off from what we were supposed to be talking about. But I enjoy this too. This has been fun.
Sometimes the conversations are the ones that are unscripted, right? Or to me, a sign of a really good conversation is where you go, I wish I just had 5 more minutes, But it's always good to leave a conversation with a little bit left, Who knows? Maybe we'll have a part 2 on one of these.
Yeah, we can come back and do a part 2 because this has been fun. I did not realize the time was passing as it was.
Oh, that's another good sign of a good conversation, right? That's cool.
Yeah, so do you have anything else you want to leave with us? Anything you want to talk about?
Nah, I think we're good. I think we had ourselves, like, I don't know if people still say this, but I think we chopped it up pretty good today. So I appreciate the conversation.
Man, this was a really good one. I think for people who are kind of the psychological nerds like me, they'll enjoy this one.
I hope so. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have a conversation about the stuff that I care about. So I thank you for the time and the conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
This was a really good one. This is definitely something that I enjoy doing. So I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. This was a good one, man. So hopefully everybody else enjoyed this too. This conversation is not done. We're just taking a pause right here so we can convene another time. So we don't want to overload you guys with like a 5-hour episode like Joe Rogan does. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. But look, I appreciate everything. Thank you so much. This has been a real treat.
Yes, sir. So do you want to let people find you and follow you and everything, or do you want to be like low key and stuff? How do you want to handle that?
I'm good with either. I mean, I always try to be a service. So, I mean, anyone's welcome to reach out to me. I think you found me on X or Twitter or whatever it's called. I'm also on LinkedIn and a few other elements, but it's just Scott Goldman, and even if you Google it, like Scott Goldman PH, like I don't have a website or anything. I mean, I've been fortunate. The teams that find me, they tend to find me sort of organically, but I believe my tag is at Scott Goldman PhD on Twitter. So you can do that, or you can find me on LinkedIn, or again, just Google me, and then you can hit me up, and I'll have a conversation with just about anyone, anytime.
All right. So if you guys want to contact with him, I'll have the stuff below, and just you gotta let him know how great he was in this episode. This was a really good one. I enjoyed this. So let him know how great he was. Let him know that, hey, I saw you on the BeBall Drones podcast. That was a great conversation, and that was fun. So let him know you got to come back and do a part 2. And if you guys want to be in touch with me, you can reach me at BeBall Jones. That's BeBall Jones. I'm pretty much everywhere, universal on the social media platforms. And you can let him know that he has to come back again. Don't let me know because I'm working on that part already. You guys don't know it. So let him know that he should come back and do a part 2. And if you really want to show him some love, like this video, share it with a friend, Make sure you subscribe to me on YouTube, follow on Spotify and Apple. Anywhere else you listening. We're not just exclusive to that. It's pretty universal where we're found. But those are the main few. So that's it. Thank you again,
Cool.
Scott, for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. See you next week.